Great day, everybody. How are you today? It's still me, Itayo Ogunyemi, and welcome to another edition of my special moments I get to share on entertainment law. And what do we have today? So I want to talk about something that actually trended. I mean something about freedom of an artist or a musician's freedom of expression as against a sect's freedom of religious expression. And so today's conversation has to do with all that I do about Davido's video posts. You recall that Davido actually posted something that trended, and then we had a certain sect without having to mention in particular now really been against it and requesting that, look, you need to apologize, and that this is desecration of the religion, as it were. Well, so I am actually a friend of everybody, and my intention is to just look at this from the legal perspective. What does the law say, and how do we then ensure that in all of these things we are weighing and equating and ensuring that, like Lady Artemis, there is a fair balance between Davido's right to express his information, even on social media, and the rights of the people, as it were, to their religion and the religious values, culture, norms, and beliefs. How do we intersect? I mean, what is the intersection between these two? And how do we ensure that we're creating a balance so that we can have a very solid society, which is really my desire here. My desire is for us to keep learning every day and see how we can be accommodating and then have a very robust society that is embracing of everybody. I recall as well that Wole Soyinka, Papa Wole Soyinka, of course, he came into it and said, look, Davido, you don't need to apologize to anybody. You have your right to artistic expression. You can express yourself where you choose to express yourself. Does not matter in any way and all of that. So what do you think of this? What's your thoughts? Share your comments. Let's see what you think right in the comment box below. Again, I have come to talk and analyze the legal perspective to all of these things. So it is not an intention to be on Davido's side or on the side of my brethren. I belong to nobody and I belong to everybody, okay? So, yeah, let's start it. So, I need to start this on the, let's start on the note of the fact that I did a session earlier which you might find very helpful. Recall the movie Gangs of Lagos. I had a session on it where I analyzed the use of your masquerade. What do you think about that in the cultural perspective? But then this has to do with religious perspective as against culture, even though there is an intertwining, there is a mixing somewhere between culture and religion. So you may want to check that video, of course, where I analyzed a lot of things, taking my audience, my listeners, back to the theories of copyright, different schools of thought, different philosophies around the theory, the different theories of copyright. I talked about the personality theory, I talked about the fairness theory, I talked about cultural theory, and I talked about welfare theory. And amidst these four theories, I also took time to analyze the fact that some of these theories are individualistic in nature. And for the fact that they are individualistic in nature, you would find that they tend to favor individual freedoms as against collective freedoms or collective roles or duties and responsibilities. So if we were to look at it from the lenses of these theories that are in favor of individual freedom, you might then see that there is a tilting in favor of someone like Davido and his individual right to express himself and the work of art. And bear in mind anyway, because I had this conversation with some colleagues, and I told them that, look, at the end of the day, what really matters is I mean, all this argue about this whole thing, it's not something that we should be lamenting over, because Davido merely posted a video relating to another artist it is not necessarily his work. And so, why is it the victim here? You get my point. So, the point really is we are not even analyzing the context or the legality or otherwise of the copyright in that work. What is being analyzed here is the trend of Davido's video. And so I feel that it's a misplacement really of what the society needs to be talking about. Debates are healthy and conflicts are good in the context when we are able to analyze things and use them to build concepts and build frameworks and improve on our laws, which is really my core in today's conversation. There needs to be a shift from Davido as the subject to the musical work itself, and then a debate on the legality or otherwise of the use of the settings in the context of that video. So you might want to agree with me on this or otherwise, and which is where my point is. And at the end of this conversation, you might likely then begin to see reasons with me. But let me not jump into all of that. Let's come back to where I was, as it were. So I was talking about the different schools, different theories of copyright, how some theories focus on individual freedom. And if we were to look at that artist, taking jumping away from Davido now as a subject, if we were to look at that artist, the school, the proponents, the people that belong to that school of thought would be of the opinion that the artist has a right to his work. Morality is another thing. But then, if we were to then jump into the schools of thought, the proponents of the fact that whatever is done as an individual, there has to be the priority on the collective, which is the community, which is the society, which is the country, the nation, as it were. We then could begin to look at rights and freedoms from the context of the fact that the society comes first or the community comes first. And at the forefront of this is the cultural school of thoughts, the cultural school of thoughts, which is gradually gaining momentum in the field of copyright. The cultural school of thought would assume averagely, or would assume generally, that whatever is being done, there is a need to ensure that the culture is not tampered with. There is a need to ensure that whatever is being done from the context of the values, the norms of the people. And then, why I said earlier on that you need to then begin to look at what is the intersection between religious values and cultural values. Of course, there are laws, there are what we call international frameworks that has to do with cultural values. We have the UNESCO framework, for instance. We have the UN framework, for instance. So there are laws, and it's the more reason I say you need to then check my work, Gangs of Lagos and Matters Arising in that work, which I believe is going to be shared, or the link will be shared. But you should check it on Low Accent YouTube. You will find where I really took a deep dive into explaining all of these concepts, so that you can then have an understanding of the intersection between law and culture, and then by extension the intersection between law and religious values, religious norms, and religious beliefs. But here is the key and the cocoa of the matter. If we are going to be analyzing, and I hope you have your constitution with you there, so this is my constitution, and remember that one of the things we always say at Low Accent is the need for you as our listeners to ensure that you have a basic understanding of what the law is saying. So this is my own constitution, and I hope you have your constitution there. So we are looking at connecting freedom of expression in musical works, and then we are then considering as well the freedom to religious freedoms, religious values, norms, and beliefs. So the law, or the section that speaks volume to these two topical issues found in section 38 of the Constitution and section 39. So my section 38 talks about the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. And then the section 39 speaks to right to freedom of expression and the press. Now, let's just take a pause and then let me ask you a question, and get to the comment box and let me hear from you again. So, who once said this? I can guarantee you the right of speech, but I cannot guarantee you the right after your speech, right? I didn't say it in the exact way that that person said it, but I'm sure you know what I'm saying. So put it in the comment box. Who said what? You have a right of speech, but right after it is what I cannot guarantee. Who said so? Put it in the comment box and let's make this fun enough. Okay, so section 38 has to do with right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. And I'll just read a part of it so that we can then pick from there. Now, section 38 sub 1 says, every person shall be entitled to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, including freedom to change his religion. So when you hear the word is, it includes her, right? So it would say including the freedom to, change religion, blah, 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 and all of that. Now, from the context of this thing I just read, right, it is very obvious that what the Constitution is offering to people, and interestingly, not even just citizens, it says every person. What the Constitution is offering to people is their right to practice their religion. The Constitution is not offering the right to impose. Neither is it offering the right to prosecute, to be the judge against other people. And I hope I'm making some sense on that conversation. What the Constitution is guaranteeing is the independence to practice and not necessarily the independence to fight it when there is an allegation of desecration. And I want to put a full stop at that so that this can just go to a point of debate and not a conclusive point where it begins to look like this is being imposed. But I want to know what you think. We are engaging in a constitutional debate, and I believe, once again, I said earlier on, that this is how we can build a robust society. And remember what I said too earlier on, that we should not then get into a point of sentiment where Davido's video becomes the subject. The subject we should be talking about and analyzing is the context of the video itself and the rights or otherwise of the producer, the copyright owner of that video, which could be the musician in this context. I think when we have that kind of conversation, that is when we can then begin to look at, do we need to adjust our copyright laws to ensure that religious views and opinions are respected, or we just need to continue to be liberal enough to respect individual rights and freedom of expression. Whichever way you look at it, and whichever one you go to, at the end, that you go for, at the end of the day, this will then determine whether you belong to the school of thought of those that are individualistic in nature and would rather recommend that individual freedoms should be respected. Otherwise, if you go for the other, that is religious values and norms and religious artifacts, as it were, should be respected, whether whichever religion you belong to, without having to mention any name, if you're of that opinion, then you are likely to be communalistic in nature. And I think it's good for us to begin to have this kind of debates where we stick to our point and we have a basis for insisting on those points while not shutting other people from their freedom of opinion. And I hope that this has made some sense to you. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts and your view. Are you individualistic or you are more of a community person? Till I come your way again, I want you to stay blessed and continue to listen to Law Accent and Accent Radio.